I'm seeing a game called Beat Banger, a mature furry rhythm game, which has some anthropomorphic characters here that appears to still be on Steam. So listen, it's not that bad, to be honest. You can still get some decent product on Steam. They have to start spazzing out. It's economic fascism. So you have to change the systems and the law. You can't just cry about the individual advocacy group. It's insane. So our favorite YouTuber, Mr. Repsion, has released a video about the MasterCard and Visa issue where they are trying to force Steam, or have forced Steam and itch.io and all these other websites to take lots of adult games off of their services, off of their storefronts, because of a pressure campaign from a Australian sort of like, you know, feminist group called Collective Shout. So let's take a look.
We got to talk about something that I'm very, very passionate about, and that is censorship on the internet from a company that is really bad themselves, but they mask themselves as for the children when they're actually not for the children. But we'll get into that later. So a website, itch.io, you may have heard of it, maybe not. They have NSFW content. It's basically an indie game site where you can go and play indie games and put your games up for whatever. They have NSFW and they have safe for work games of all different types, right? So they released a statement the other day titled Update on NSFW Content. In this post, they talk about indexing these NSFW games because they recently became under scrutiny from a game called No Mercy, which was temporarily available on itch.io before being banned in April by a collective organization called Collective Shout, which I'll get into later. This is a really bad company, despite the fact that they mask themselves as like doing good works and saving the children, and I'll explain to you why. But they launched a campaign against Steam and itch.io and directing concerns for our payment.
Okay, Collective Shout. Asmongold, you know, I hate Asmongold. I loathe Asmongold, but I have the slightest bit of respect for Asmongold for focusing on PayPal and MasterCard and Visa rather than Collective Shout. There's a million of these pressure campaigns. It is very easy to just go, oh, annoying old women being annoying old women. Let's all cry about that endlessly. But that's not where the problem is. So this will keep happening. There will be endless Collective Shouts unless you change the laws. You have to change the laws. You have to have action taken against the payment processors and force them to service certain things. That is basically the solution if you want this fixed. You have to take away some of their rights, or you have to split them up and allow new payment processors to get into the market or whatever. And you have to do it that way. You have to do it legally. You can't just say, boo-hoo, Collective Shout, let's make a million videos about how these feminists are ruining everything. Because they are a symptom. They can only be effective because the laws are set up in a way that allows them to. And there will be endless groups that pop up for different interest campaigns that will do different censorship.
Payment process about the nature of which content can be found on both platforms. So Steam also removed a massive library of not safe for work games on Steam because this group, Collective Shout, this nonprofit organization, I don't know how. I mean, I do know how. Well, I don't know how they have so much power, but essentially this Collective Shout group comes along and they're like, hey, you know what?
Labubu, Matcha Dubai, Chocolate Warriors are coming to your house and taking your rights.
Uses payment processors like Visa and MasterCard, and if we squeeze their nutsack really tight and pull on it for things that we don't like or things that we disapprove of, and we attack the payment processors and say, hey, look at this. There's NSFW content in a video game. We don't like it. The payment processors are going to be like, oh my God. And they pull out, and Steam, itch.io, it doesn't matter how big and rich a company is. If you take away the payment processors, which make them money, they're going to comply. All right, that's just this harsh reality, but this makes a much bigger implication here. The implication here and how this company, Collective Shout, which mind you, if you go to their website, they talk about we have to stop all misogynistic content and content that depicts women in any sort of negative way, and children in any sort of negative way, which reminds you,
I wonder if almost there's like some similar, I don't know, legal concept that could be introduced, like to like how we do shit like rent, right? I mean, obviously there's no renting protections in the fucking US. But like in the UK, you have got a lot of recourse against landlords, and you're able to sort of, you know, prevent your eviction through courts and stuff like that. I want if there was a way to implement some kind of legal framework for companies challenging when these sort of like more utility style companies start trying to drop service for them. But then it'd probably be harder to get on the service. But then there'd maybe more room open up for smaller payment providers. Who knows? I don't know. Who knows? Who knows how it would work?
That went over and tried to ban GTA 5 because of the themes it has in it. And they also went after the game called Detroit. I don't know if you guys ever played Detroit Become Human, I think it is. A phenomenal game, by the way. But they tried to get that game banned because it has depictions of...
Well, there are rules for bans, but I don't know that there's any laws that prevent a payment processor from deciding who they do business with.
Being, you know, hurt.
Oh, you mean just
even
copy
though
those
the context in the game, if you...
But I feel like banks, even banks, don't have to give everyone service, no? They can, you can get debanked, right?
Play that game it's not like glorifying child being harmed or anything. It's like, it's a crucial part of the story. It's a story element. But this game, Collective Shout, is like, well, a woman's depicted in a negative way. She got hit by somebody. Therefore, we must ban it because it has an adult...
Isn't the Kanye debanking thing kind of overblown? Like, he wasn't debanked for his views, was he? He was debanked for going in and getting an anti-Semitic altercation with a manager or something, I believe, right? Farage was debanked, I'm pretty sure, because he had some weird as fuck shit going on with his finances. I think he got it back. No? I think a lot of the debanking cases are overblown. And like Fuentes cries about that crypto being seized.
Right, the fact that the video game is rated M, and you have to be an adult to buy the game to begin with, right? But let's just disregard that. Let's just ban GTA 5 because we don't like something in it. This is dangerous. This is extremely dangerous. And I don't know how this same group that's like, for the children, we need to protect children through these video games, these rated M video games that have adult themes. Meanwhile, they're the same company that defended the movie Cuties. Now, I don't know if you remember that movie, but that was a pretty horrible movie. A movie that literally glorified, and its entire theme is around like 8 and 10-year-olds twerking and dancing and a lot of inappropriate stuff of children, right? They defend that movie, Cuties, but let's go after the video games because that's the real problem. We gotta save the children. Violent video games, guys, adult content, right? We have to ban it because that's what we do in our nonprofit organization. First of all, you, Collective Shout. I don't know how you have so much influence, but the fact that you're gripping Steam and all these companies by the ball and you're just squeezing them dry, milking them dry, because you think, this is the little loophole that we can attack people through, is the payment processors. Like, it makes sense. It makes sense. I understand why the payment processors would do this, but here's the goddamn reality, all right? Let me change my camera here. At the end of the day, you and if I want to spend my money on a video game like GTA 5, with my heart, it is my money, and if I want to spend it the way that I want to spend it, nobody should have a right. A payment processor should not, and we're talking about legal things, okay? We're not talking about illegal content on the internet. We're talking about a video game. I don't care what's content's in the video game, all right? There's a lot of weird video games out there.
You don't care what content? It could be anything?
There's a lot of games that I'm like, I would never buy that. I would never put... But it's not safe for work, right? An anime game, I don't care what the theme is. At the end of the day, there's some gross video games out there. But it's your money. If you want to play a video game and pay money for that with your own money, you should have the right to do that. A company should not come around and say, well, you know what? We don't like the themes of this, so we're going to get the game banned and pulled because you've spent money on this thing and now you don't own it, right?
I don't think that's how it works. I think it's just pulled from the storefronts. I don't think it's being removed from people's libraries. I don't think. Right? Or is it?
You don't own the game that you paid your own. Why does any company get to determine what I can and can't spend my money on when it's legal?
What has actually been removed?
What determines collective shout for being anti-trans and then coming along and saying, hey, we don't like the fact that there's gay characters.
Honey Pop is still on there. God bless.
Or LGBTQ plus themes in a video game, which, mind you, there's lots of video games on the Steam that are not safe for work that actually have those types of themes in them. We don't like this, so let's get rid of it. We don't like trans stuff. Get rid of it. We don't like gay stuff. Let's get rid of it. Anything that depicts anything that's mature or not safe for work, let's get rid of it. Once you start down this rabbit hole, it only goes south. And if they can easily have this much of effect on Steam, a billion-dollar platform. Have any of you guys heard of the bill called S401? Well, if you haven't, I'm going to educate you on this. This is a really crucial bill. A bill that you and I need to call our representatives, Congress, whoever's in our state, and we need to get this bill passed. And what this bill does is that it imposes penalties on payment processors. I think it's called the Fair Banking Act, this bill. It imposes penalties on payment processors not doing business with people who are following the law legally. Look, I understand payment processors not wanting to be associated with something that's, I don't know, like illegal, right? Like there's probably corn websites that have...
Okay, are these safe to pull up? Can I pull these up and be in the clear? Yeah, I think so. Whoops. Retired. Incest Tales. Sister and Mom. Retired. Sex Village. Retired. Incest Tales. Webcam Daughter. Retired. Slave of the Police Officer. Removed from store. Interactive Sex. Incest Twins. Episode 3. Incest Daughters BDSM. Episode 1. Incest Daughters BDSM. Episode 2. Interactive Sex. Incest Twins. Episode 4. Interactive Sex. Futanari Incest. Episode 4. Interactive Sex. Futanari Incest BDSM. Interactive Sex. Incest Daughters. Episode 2. Interactive Sex. Incest Twins. Episode 1. Interactive Sex. Futanari Incest. Episode 1. Sex Adventures. Incest Family. Episode 9. Interactive Sex. Daddy Twins Incest. Interactive Sex, Daddy Twins Incest BDSM. Interactive Sex, Incest Daughters Episode 5. Okay. Redemption of Lee Wei. Oh, and Queen Prince Incest. Oh, apparently removed means you can't download it or play anymore, and retired means you can't see it anymore. So, did any, like, actual worthwhile games get removed, or is it all this dumb 3D CG shit? Because honestly, you should be, like, put in a fucking camp. Frankly, I am like Hassan-style re-education camps. Not Hassan, non-compete style re-education camps for people that buy these games, by the way. Not because of the fetish stuff. Literally just because, like, why are you buying these shitty 3D CG PowerPoint presentations on Steam? You are retarded. I'm looking, I'm seeing Karen's Prison. This appears to be an RPG Maker porn game. This is still on Steam. That I assume must be similar to Slave of the Police Officer in some way. There must be some crossover there. I'm seeing a game called Beat Banger, a mature furry rhythm game, which has some anthropomorphic characters here that appears to still be on Steam. So listen, it's not that bad, to be honest. You can still get some decent product on Steam. That's pawsome. Now, that's certified pawsome. Monster Girl Island Prologue is still here. Apprehending the Adventurer-chan Live 2D Tentacle Simulator is still here. Peeping Dorm Manager is still here. Furry Shades of Gay 2, A Shade Gayer, is still here. Great to see that one still on the Steam store. A classic. The sequel is better than the original, I have to say. What has been taken off, truly, then? What, like... Dinosaur with double Ds is still here. They have not removed the dinosaur with double Ds. This seems like nothing but an improvement. Yeah, sure, it's the principle, but, you know, I'm gonna be real. I don't even think, like, you know, this feels a little bit... If this is the sort of stuff that's getting dropped, I'm not too fast. Like, in the actual material. Okay, the rape games are getting... Rape games are not allowed, it seems. Rape games... So, okay. That may be... If all the rape games are gone, that may be more of a problem than I initially anticipated. Reincarnation in another world, going to rape all NPCs VR has been removed from the store. Yeah, look, I'm not... I don't think rape games should be removed at all. I'm not pro the removal of rape games. I think behind an adult-only marker, why not? I don't stop at the games either. That is facts. We just watched that 40 or 50-year-old pornographer to do that whole video where she was talking about how it's fucked up that the UK doesn't allow you to record rape porn. Oh, Spinal, you would love this woman. Spinal, this would be like, you would be going crazy. Good thing you weren't in chat, to be honest.
So, actual violent acts that would be illegal in real life. One appearing to...
You've got to scrutinise it more. Let's be clear, there is a huge amount of content on there, hugely abusive, violent, misogynistic content that would not be...
Yeah, this video is awesome, man.
Right.
She just drops like so many just like bombs in this video. She's just like, yes, I've been a pornographer for 21 years. So what? I grew up in a cult. What?
This is where she starts to become quite controversial to me. Because in professionally produced porn, I'm struggling to think
and she tells this story about the removal men helping her move houses and like moving her BDSM gear and shit. Dude.
Illegal acts that get shown. We're already not allowed to show anything with weapons, even fake weapons. We're not allowed to show anyone appearing to lose consciousness. Certainly not allowed to show anyone who appears to be dead. We're not allowed to show blood. So actual violent acts that would be illegal in real life if you saw them on the high street are absolutely illegal in porn. So this is a really odd point that she's making.
That's not going to be dealt with by the Online Safety Act as a whole.
No, I mean, this is the point. So my review came up with 32 recommendations, and the sort of key recommendation within that is that you have to get parity between what was legal offline, which the BBFC would classify as...
Okay, so it's becoming clearer. She's not talking about what would be illegal or legal to do on the high street. So she's not saying that porn should be held to the same standards as the law regarding what private individuals are allowed to do in real life. So I'm glad she's not trying to say that, because we're already bound by the same laws. If you're not allowed to do it in real life, you are definitely not allowed to do it in a porn film. But
Babka, this woman completely rejects that, and I agree that is retarded, saying, oh, all male sexuality is just downstream from porn. No, I don't think that's true at all.
now I discover that's not what she
or
means.
even remotely true.
She means that we should be held to the same standards mainstream film and TV is held to the same standards as the BBFC. And that is a whole different matter, because that would be wonderful. Because if we were to be held to the same standards as the BBFC, we would be able to show weapons, because you're allowed to show weapons in even like PG-rated movies. We would be able to show blood. Not that I want to, but we would be able to. We'd be able to depict non-consensual acts if the performers were consenting. We'd be able to show people pass out or be asleep. We'd be allowed to show people with swords. Oh my god, if what she actually wants is parity between the porn industry and the mainstream film industry, that would be an absolute gift to professional pornographers like me. As it is, we are held to far stricter standards. And I'm not saying that necessarily is wrong, because one thing about porn is it's often being done by very small scale productions. So keeping people safe when something is very small scale and you don't have a whole load of union representatives there to look after you, it is possibly harder than on a mainstream film set. So that's a different discussion to have. But to hear her say that, it shows such ignorance from her about what pornographers are actually going through in terms of compliance. If we just had to keep to the same rules of what we're allowed to show as movies that are shown after 9 p.m. on BBC, that would be absolutely amazing. Good Lord.
Say there were very strict guidelines around what could be produced and what couldn't be produced, and that has not transcended over to online law, and that had...
It has. I mean, it's been done by MasterCard and Visa rather than the actual law. I mean, there is the extreme porn law and the Obscene Publications Act, But in practice, because Visa and MasterCard have handed down such draconian rules about what we're allowed to show, yeah, it is absolutely translated over to porn. Far more so than in mainstream.
It has to change immediately.
Why do you think it hasn't transcended?
Well, because it wasn't it wasn't drafted with that in mind, in truth. So it's, you know, this is another example of where regulation and the law has just not kept pace with the reality of what people are doing. And I think it's very important to emphasise the scale of this. It's 13.8 million people regularly watch porn. That is almost a third of all adult males watch pornography in this country regularly. So this is not sort of...
It's actually, I think it's a lot more than that, the last statistic.
And I think I would
This
also
is
say
great
that
as
it's
well.
very
It's a great
troubling
bit.
that we also see another one of Elon Musk's products, Grok AI, creating sort of companions that are often children, and very quickly the conversations become sexualized, and often conversations where they're interpreting, relations, incestual relations between fathers and young daughters. And
Okay, this is outside my area here. Like, so Grok AI she's talking about. And I think she's talking about people being able to talk to an AI who will then sort of mimic an underage person. I think that's what she's saying.
Uh-huh.
So people are
What's
sort
her
of
thoughts on that?
sexting with AIs who are kind of acting like they're children. Don't quote me on this. I have to say, I mean, it's distasteful. The idea is distasteful. But
So fucking funny, man. So epic.
actually, I would definitely rather someone with those kind of inclinations. I would much rather they were talking to Grok than to an actual child. So that seems a bit of an odd red herring, really. I don't really see where she's going with that.
Is that true? Is that true?
Dude. Just very funny. Just very funny video. Yeah, let's finish this one.
Have contained, illegal material of people being underage, right? I support payment processors like, screwing off from that. That stuff is perfectly justifiable, and I agree with that. But we're talking about a video game.
Okay, but you can't just... This is the thing. You can't just, perfectly pick and choose like that. So you have to come up with a system for adjudicating when it's justified and not, right? You have to have it implemented in law, right? You can't just go, well, sometimes it's bad, sometimes it's good, so they should just do the good one and not do the bad one. No, people disagree with you on that, and so you have to come up with a legal framework for deciding when that's the case, and an enforcement mechanism to make sure these companies actually do this, and, that's the way it has to go.
Not safe for work or safe for work. It doesn't matter, right? It doesn't matter what the content is. If they don't like it, they can just get rid of it. And then you're out the video game. You pay your money for this. The money you earned, you paid for. We're adults. Why does a payment processor get to tell me what I legally...
What's your general opinion? I'm against it on principle. It doesn't seem like much of value has been lost from the Steam store. It all seems like mostly 3D CG slideshow games. But I am against it on principle.
Can buy or what I can't buy. Payment processors should not be pressured from a political standpoint or social nonprofit means. That's a huge one. To do what their bidding is. We're a nonprofit social, and we don't want kids depicted in any negative way in video games. Section 5 of this bill specifically mentions Visa and MasterCard, which is pretty much like all of the US, right? No company should be able to walk in and tell me how I can spend my time and how I can spend my own goddamn money that I earn. I am 33 years old. I make my own money. I make my own choices, right? I enjoy my own hobbies, whatever those may be. If you think the group Collective Shout wants to ban these video games like GTA and Detroit Become Human, it's not going to stop at corn on the internet. It doesn't stop there, because once you get corn banned, even if it's legal and it's adults doing consensual things, it's just going to go further and further and further. That is how these things work. It is ineditable. I can't even say that word right. You know what I mean. This is a slope that's going to slide, no matter what you throw down it. I'm in full support of artists, even not safe for work artists. You as an artist, if you make that type of content, no matter what it is, fandoms, games, it doesn't matter. You should be concerned about this, because they can just come along and, you accept payments through Venmo or Cash App or whatever app you use to accept payments for your art, right? well, now payment processors can be like, you know what? We saw that you're accepting payment that you draw, let's just say, anthropomorphic animals. You can no longer do that because we don't approve of it, even though there's nothing illegal about it. Right now, Collective Shout is calling for banning all NSFW content on Twitter. There is no reason on earth that Visa and MasterCard should have this much power to shut down half of Steam, a billion-dollar game client, because they pull out of something because they don't want to be associated for not safe for work content. A company shouldn't be telling you or I how I spend or how you spend your money. Can we agree with that? I don't know if this is the proper term, but I feel like this would be what's known as economic fascism.
This is like total retardation, man. This is the thing. Nothing will ever get done about any of these problems because everyone that talks about them is so retarded. It's the same with Stop Killing Games. It's the same with this shit. People just actually cannot be remotely reasonable. They have to start spazzing out. It's economic fascism. No, it's like it's a duopoly or something, right? It's a duopoly of a particular service, and you just need to change or implement laws to deal with it. Just sitting here crying, not suggesting any reasonable solution. Saying it's economic fascism, saying they're telling you how to spend your money. That's just not the case, and you need to stop being so retarded about it.
Is that what this would be called? Economic fascism. Then you have like the government and these corporations that have giant control over everything and determine what is allowed and what isn't with our own money, and there's no laws being actually violated, but because they don't like it, they can determine what we can and can't buy and consume. And I have to...
It's just not true though, is it? They're not doing that. They're not doing that at all. Because you could still buy these from the game's individual websites, which may still be accessing payment processors, and even if they don't have access to payment processors, they could sell it in crypto. So you actually can still spend your money. It is a little bit more difficult. You can still spend your money on those things. You can still buy them. Now, obviously, it affects the market in such a way and stifles creativity in certain areas if you allow payment processors to start arbitrarily deciding what can and can't be bought on their services, because those services are highly important, and that the prohibitive difficulty of buying something through crypto does influence consumers a lot. But it's not the case that you're being told you can't spend your money on that. It's not the case that you can't buy that stuff anymore. It's just not the case. You should make a more reasonable argument if you actually want something to change.
Bring this up again because I already mentioned it, but the movie Cuties. Collective Shout literally glorified this movie, and if you haven't seen this movie, which I haven't, but I've seen clips and I know enough about it to know that I'm never going to watch it because I don't want to, but it literally glorifies the sexualization of minors. That's what that is what it is. Pure and simple. If you defend this movie, if you like this movie, that is what you're defending. Collective Shout defended this. So why do they get to determine what they can and can't, my words are not flowing today. Why do they...
No, he's already cried about cuties once in this fucking video. The reason Collective Shout defended that movie, I'm guessing, is because it's a movie made by some feminist about the sexual exploitation of young girls and them being stuck between abusive or oppressive Muslim backgrounds and sexually exploitative Western media. And they probably take a defense of pretty much any media that's about the exploitation of women, because they're a feminist group. Whether you have a different argument or not.
Get to determine what we can and can't consume when they're literally supporting that. Who are they to be the arbiter of what content and video games that we can and can't play?
Not the arbiter. See, it's just so retarded. Like, why can you not have a reasonable conversation about this? They're not the arbiter. Collective Shout are not the arbiter. If anyone is the arbiter in this situation, it's MasterCard and Visa. Collective Shout are just a pressure group. They're not the problem. Another Collective Shout will spring up if you get rid of this one.
Point, if this, the fact that Steam and itch.io have complied, right, which I understand why, But like we're moving back to 1984. Do we have any hacktivist people? Like some crazy smart? Do I have any smart hacktivist people? I don't care if you're a furry. I don't care what you are. Honestly,
God,
we need your help at this point. Can we like hack collective?
Furry hacktivists, please respond. Furry hacktivists, please respond. Rita will have a fucking aneurysm listening to this if he ever sees.
Shout the company and completely like leak. There's something. I'm sorry. There is something shady about this company. How do they have this much power to influence these gigantic corporation payment processors, the biggest in the world? This small little non-profit company has the flow to just grip a nutsack and milk it dry so that we're all left like begging for a drip. And something that I need to mention here, I know when we talk about NSFW, the first thing people think about is like porn, right? Sex stuff. NSFW is not, I feel the term NSFW is very vague, all right? We need to establish this. It is vague. NSFW includes blood, okay? Including blood. This is how far it goes. It's not just like one specific category.
Wow.
This is all encompassing. It includes blood, which is even more crazy because even if a game doesn't have a particular controversial type of...
It's not just NSFW games being targeted, though. It's specifically incest and rape games, no?
Subject matter in it, blood falls into that category. So any game with blood now is banned. They can ban it because they don't like it.
Okay, they can, yeah. But the whole point, the reason... Okay, so Repzion is just like a total retard. This guy is so fucking dumb. So, a payment processor has many companies. They serve many, many businesses. Collective Shout, as an organization, their job, their goal, is to convince the payment processor that they will lose more money from the pressure campaign that this group is doing on other companies and on Visa and MasterCard themselves, that the Visa and MasterCard will lose more money from the effects of that pressure campaign than they gain from serving these products. That is the goal of Collective Shout. They don't just decide whether you do something or whatever. They don't just tell companies what to do. That's not the case. They have to argue that. Now, video games are a multi-billion-dollar industry, I believe. And games with blood are incredibly common and popular. They make a huge, huge amount of money. Incest and rape games do not make a huge, huge amount of money. They're a very small percentage of the market share. As such, when Collective Shout start arguing to a company like Visa or MasterCard that they should drop games, they're going to have a very easy time arguing against incest and rape games, and a much more difficult time arguing against blood games. As such, it's very unlikely, almost impossible, that games with blood are going to be dropped by payment processors because the consumer base for those games far outweighs any effect a pressure campaign could have. But Repzion clearly doesn't understand any of this. He thinks Collective Shout are the arbiters. He thinks they decide. No. No. You have to do something about the payment processes, you fucking mongoloid.
Includes blood, which is even more crazy because even if a game doesn't have a particular controversial type of subject matter in it, blood falls into that category. So any game with blood now is banned. They can ban it because they don't like it. I went to the page of Collective Shout, and they describe themselves as, what does it say? Let me pull this up really quick. Okay, they call themselves grassroots nonprofit. That's their bio on Twitter. Not grassroots nonprofit organization. And mind you, this company, Collective Shout, managed, I don't know how many people know this. Do you guys know who Tyler the Creator is? OG YouTuber. Great music, right? Tyler the Creator was banned from the country of Australia from being able to perform his music. Why? How? He was banned from being able to perform his content, his songs in the country of Australia because of his lyrics. And Collective Shout was managed to get him banned from performing his concert.
I mean, yeah, Collective Shout are do fucking suck. Yeah, they suck. But what are you gonna do? The issue with the UK is we don't have very good free speech protections. The issue isn't Collective Shout. Oh, and same in Australia. They did it in both, so. But yeah, I'm pretty sure they were part of the No Mercy game recently as well that got taken down a while ago. But yeah, it's a lack of free speech protections. It's not a matter of, again, in all these cases, it's an issue with the law. You can't just cry about these advocacy groups. There's always going to be advocacy groups that you disagree with. Australia's not in Europe, Spinal. There's always going to be advocacy groups that you disagree with. They're going to want things that you don't want. So you have to change the systems and the law. You can't just cry about the individual advocacy group. It's insane.
Do you not see the problem with this? You should be shaking in your boots right now. You should be furious as me, and this should be grinding your gears to a point that you just want to do something radical to make change happen. How we can do that other than talking about it, how I can do it other than talking about it and bring awareness to it. We're having the downfall of internet society and culture happening right now with this company, with these type of decisions. Oh, you're associated with a certain political party? Well, banned, you know? Oh, you have a manga that you like reading digitally? Well, banned. Oh, there's an anime with adult themes? Well, banned. Did you see this? It does not stop at video games. Visa and MasterCard are utilities, all right? I pay an electric bill. That's a utility company, right? I pay them.
Okay, we're starting to get back on track to something that resembles a reasonable argument here. Okay.
I pay for my water. I pay for my trash. Utilities. These payment processors are a utility. A utility should not be able to determine what I buy and spend my money on. If I'm paying them for a video game where GTA 5 has, I don't even really consider it to be really that, adult game related, but apparently Collective Shout does. Me paying the utility should not be able to refuse my right for service. Think of it this way. I'm trying to word this in a way that really makes sense to everybody watching, where even if you aren't super into games, you understand what I'm saying, where you have to oppose why this is a bad thing happening. This is horrible censorship, and I am a huge advocate for not censoring things on the internet that are legal. Imagine your electric company says, hey, you know what? We're going to deny you electricity because you watch a particular show that we don't approve of. That's what this is. Or you associate with a political party we don't like. We're going to cut your electricity off.
So, I mean, if you're making a utility argument, it might not line up perfectly. But I feel like I remember Repzion being, and this is a deep cut. This is like real old shit. This is like old head, my Unk moment coming in. Okay, Unk moment coming in. I'm pretty sure I remember Mr. Repzion here being on the more lib progressive side of the whole gay cake Christian baker controversy. Which is, at the end of the day, a matter of essentially, do you force a company to service people because they're engaging in something that's protected? Which, I mean, you could make a distinguishing argument about utilities, I think, maybe. But it is just, it's an interesting, Yeah, it's a protected class issue as well, kinda. I mean, but you can say it's a protected class issue, but it's a First Amendment issue and shit as well, right? It's not just a protected class issue. I understand if that's your distinguishing factor is that it's about protected classes, but
If we're going to cut your water off. This is why, and I hate government, but this is why we have governmental regulations with stuff like this. This is why we do need government in some sense of the way, is because it allows these companies to make any decision and want an absolute fuck us up the ass. We're adults here. I have the credit card. I'm sorry, a 9-year-old is not going to be buying adult-rated video games or not NSFW content, most likely, right? Unless you're just one of those parents who just doesn't care. But even then, that's your fault as a parent. It has nothing to do with the game or the service that they're using, right? If you're a stupid parent and you let your kids have your credit card and spend $5,000 on Fortnite skin, that's your fault as a parent. Don't blame the game. Don't blame the developers. Don't blame the website or the payment process because you're stupid. The fact of the matter of this, they are going for any video game with sensitive issues. Okay, this is not about corn. This is about anything that they don't deem approve of in the vague category of not safe for work, which encompasses so much. And you and I need to talk about this. You and I need to be contacting every person we possibly can within our state to get this bill acted upon and legalized so payment processors cannot royally f us in the ass. At this point, I feel like companies don't want my money. So you know what? If you're going to make it a hassle
What is this bill?
to not take my money, I'm just going to save my money. So more money.
Oh my god, where do I look? Bill S41. Wait. Oh? You got the name wrong?
We got to talk about this bill passed and what this bill does.
Fair Banking Act. Fair Banking Act. Explained. Come on now. None of this. I don't... Wait. Is this guy okay? Is this a UK bill? Wasn't this guy saying... I can't even see what he's talking about here. We can't either. Wow, nice one. Do I often pull up things when I'm Google searching? That's an easy 30 minutes. Let's see if we can find it. Okay, alright, okay. Bill S401. Fair Access to Banking Act. Thank you for the $9.99 Topher. Huge appreciated.
Take all the time you need. Saluting face emoji.
Applies to banks, credit unions, and payment card networks with over $10 billion in consolidated assets. Bars these institutions from denying services to lawfully operating individuals or businesses unless refusal is based on pre-established, quantitative, impartial, risk-based standards. Prohibits denial of services based on political, reputational, or social pressure reasons. Requires written justification for denials. Enforces compliance via penalties such as disqualification from Federal Reserve discount window lending, revoking depository insurance, or civil fines up to $10,000 per violation. That actually sounds okay. That sounds pretty good. No? Okay, there's Kevin Kramer, guys, who proposed it.
I just listened to the colloquy between the...
Wait, this is a Fair Access to Credit Scores Act. We don't want that one.
Banking Committee Republican
He's been on Fox talking about
Price also boycotted, or Democrats wouldn't vote on it. But eventually, all of this happened. All those people got finally confirmed, but never in a 50-50 Senate. Can you actually prevent Sarah Bloom Raskin from getting this appointment?
Well, it remains to be seen, I think. But the easy way to move things forward would be...
Okay, I assume this is trolling in chat right now. This seems backwards. It should be protect banks from being threatened by random activist groups.
To take
I'm assuming that's trolling.
Raskin nomination, which is a very important one. That's a 10-year appointment to the supervisor, and set that aside. We could move on to 5 other Fed nominations. Well, really 4 Fed nominations and then 1 for the Federal Housing Agency. And we'd be happy to vote on all of those. Not that we would vote for all of them, but we'd be happy to vote on them. Each committee has their own rules, Joe, so each committee's a little bit different. So what we did by not attending the business meeting where the markup would take place is we denied the
dude,
Democrats.
you retarded. The random group doesn't tell the bank what to do. Wind the VOD back. Wind the VOD back. You are as retarded as Mr. Epsilon right now if you're actually arguing that. Holy fuck.
It's a quorum, and that's one of the rules that
well, how are they getting leverage? Because they make the case that the bank will lose more money from serving those goods than not serving those goods. They will make the case they will perform a public pressure campaign to make people not want to use the services or punish the bank, punish the payment processor for allowing this to continue. And the bank makes the assessment that they will lose more money from that pressure campaign than they gain from selling these video games. And as such, they decide not to serve that business. That's why.
50 Senate, the minority has.
There are different reasons.
But if the chairman would just separate it out, we could move forward. And by the way,
they won't do that because that's acknowledging that maybe they don't get Sarah Bloom Raskin through. They want to keep up.
But they ought to acknowledge that, Joe.
Yeah.
It is, but they ought to acknowledge that because we're doing Democrats a big favor. All we're asking for are further answers to really important questions about Sarah Bloom Raskin's...
Not you. You
Right.
just think that by definition she's going to use the Fed to...
Where's the
reserved,
legislation part?
fed.
It's about this
answer that?
Raskin.
Division of a nominee.
Philosophical question about the issue of debanking and debanking.
Here we go.
I absolutely agree with you when it comes to the issue just of the revolving door in the broadest context. I wanted to ask you maybe a more philosophical question about the issue of debanking and debanking certain industries, not necessarily government from a government mandate perspective, but from an individual private business perspective. How do you feel about banks making decisions about whether it's oil, gas, whether it's guns, whether it's something else?
Well, I introduced the Fair Access to Banking Act. I think if you're an FDIC-insured bank, if your backstop is the taxpayers of this country, categorically excluding entire industries that are legal commerce is wrong, and you shouldn't be allowed to do it. That said, I think on a case-by-case basis, the assessment of risk is obviously an important part of banking, and I think banks ought to have some leeway to do that, but the risk assessment should not be a categorical exclusion of entire industries.
Senator, but this is where it gets more complicated. And I understand why you would support banking, for example, oil and gas or maybe the gun industry. For example, should a bank be able to decide that they don't want to support the pornography industry? Would you support them deciding that, or the gambling industry?
I would support that if they have a moral obligation or a moral objection to that, and there's a risk assessment that says, hey, this has risk, reputational risk, and other things. I think that's
no. Wait, I thought he's against. Okay, this sounds retarded. We have to look at this bill. You shouldn't be able to exclude whole industries like that. It should be fine to exclude specific businesses based on a risk assessment evaluation that you can actually justify. Again, I don't understand why the Australian activist group has any say in this. But what does it being an Australian activist group have any relevance to? They have a say because they have public sway and connections to the media and shit, and can put pressure on the company. What the fuck are you talking about? Dude, you're like actually retarded if you're thinking this way. I'm sorry. There's something fundamentally wrong. Visa and MasterCard are global companies. They operate in almost every country in the world. Being an Australian activist group doesn't really hurt them that much. The Australian activist group got Tyler the Creator banned from the UK.
certainly relevant. Obviously, I would support that. But there's a big difference between the pornography industry and providing enough energy to grow an economy and to secure a nation and a world. Very, very big gap between those examples.
But, yeah, but Senator, then you get to debanking the meat industry if certain entities that think...
it doesn't make any sense. It doesn't make any sense to pretend that the power to make this decision is in the hands of collective shout. That collective shout just gets to decide what happens. Fucking retarded. So fucking retarded.
Industry. You can...
And again, if you got rid of collective shout, there would just be another activist group. There would just be another activist group. The issue is, the payment company should not have the decision to arbitrarily decide who they do business with and who they don't. If they're going to function as a utility that is backed by taxpayers and shit, then you can't make arbitrary decisions like that. You have to justify it. People basically have to go through you. You occupy far too much of a position in the market. There is essentially a market failure. And so you need to be forced by the government to service these people. Let's read the actual bill. I don't like what this guy's saying right now, so we need to actually look into this. To amend the Federal Reserve Act to prohibit certain financial service providers who deny fair access to financial services from taxpayer-funded discount window lending programs and for other purposes. Well, that's the point of collective shout. The point of collective shout is to demonstrate to a company that the incentive to drop those games, or like the impairment they'll suffer if they don't drop those games, is worse than the market incentive of profit to service those games. Obviously, this is why they're able to get very niche games taken down, like incest and rape games. But if they more broadly went for any game in which you like kill female enemies or something like that, they'd be much less successful because the market set up in such a way that it's more beneficial to service that stuff than then drop it. And there's nothing Collective Shout can do about that. To amend the Federal Reserve Act to prohibit certain financial service providers who deny fair access to financial services from using taxpayer-funded discount window lending programs for other purposes, be it enacted by the Senate and House of Representatives of the United States and Congress assembled. Section 1, short title, the act may be cited as a Fair Access to Banking Act. Congress finds that Article 1 of the Constitution of the United States guarantees the people of the United States the right to enact public policy through free and fair blah, blah, blah. Okay. Let's go through these. Banks rightly objected to Operation Choke Point initiative, through which certain government agencies pressured banks to cut off access to financial services to lawful sectors of the economy. Banks are now, however, increasingly employing subjective, category-based evaluations to deny certain persons access to financial services in response to pressure from advocates from across the political spectrum, whose policy objectives are served when banks deny certain customers access to financial services. Privatization of the discriminatory practices underlying Operation Choke Point by banks represents a great threat to the national economy, national security, the soundness of banking and financial markets in the United States as Operation Choke Point itself. Banks supported by the United States taxpayer and often enjoy significant privileges in the financial system in the United States and should not be permitted to act as de facto regulators or unelected legislators by withholding financial services to otherwise creditworthy businesses based on subjective political reasons, bias, or prejudices. Banks are not well equipped to balance risks unrelated to financial exposures and the operations required to deliver financial services. The United States taxpayers come to the aid of the large banks during the Great Recession of 2008 because they were deemed too important to the national economy to be permitted to fail. When a bank predicates the access to a financial service of a person on factors or information such as the unlawful products a customer manufactures or sells, or the services the customer provides, other than quantitative, impartial, risk-based standards, the bank has failed to act consistent with the basic principles of sound risk management and failed to provide fair access to financial services. Banks have a responsibility to make decisions about whether to provide a person with financial services on the basis of impartial criteria free from prejudice or favoritism. While fair access to financial services does not obligate a bank to offer any particular financial service to the public, to operate in any particular geographic area, or to provide a service the bank offers to any particular person, it is necessary that the financial services a bank chooses to offer in the geographic areas in which the bank operates be made available to all customers based on the quantitative, impartial, risk-based standards of the bank, and not based on whether the customer is in a particular category of customers. Banks assess the risks posed by individual customers on a case-by-case basis, rather than category-based assessment. And banks implement controls to manage relationships commensurate with the risk associated with each customer, not a strategy of total avoidance of particular industries or categories of customers. Banks are free to deny financial services to any individual customer, but first the banks must rely on empirical data that are evaluated or consistent with the established, impartial, risk management-based plans of the bank, and anything less is not prudent risk management and may result in unsafe or unsound practices, denial of fair access to financial services, cancelling, or eliminating certain businesses in society, and have a deleterious effect on national security and the national economy. The purposes of this act are to ensure fair access to financial services, fair treatment of customers by financial service providers, including national and state banks, federal savings associations, and state and federal credit unions. Ensure banks conduct themselves in a safe and sound manner, comply with laws and regulations, treat their customers fairly, and provide fair access to financial services. Protect against banks being able to impede otherwise lawful commerce and thereby achieving certain public policy goals. Ensure that persons are involved in politically unpopular businesses that are lawful under the federal law receive fair access to financial services under the law, and it's hard for me to read. I'm quite far from my screen. And I think my eyes are fucked, I'm going to be real. Where were we? Ensure banks operate in a safe and sound manner by making judgments and decisions about whether to provide a customer with financial services on impartial, individualized, risk-based, analysis using numerical data evaluated under quantifiable standards. Advances to individual member banks. Okay, what do we care about this much? Member banks, Section 10B of the Federal Reserve Act is amended by adding at the end the following. Prohibition on use of discount window lending programs. No member banks with more than 10, I think, fuck me, what number is this? $10 billion, I think? 10 million? 10 billion? I'm not sure. In consolidated assets or subsidiary of the member bank may use a discounted window lending program if the member bank or subsidiary refuses to do business with any person who is in compliance with the law, including Section 8 of the Fair Access to Banking Act. Insured depository institutions, Section 8A2. Okay, I don't know if we care about this. Just like qualifying which banks actually have to abide by this. I assume it's the ones that actually get access to these like Federal Reserve loans and shit. Federal Reserve discounts. Payment card network. In this section, payment card network has the meaning given the term in Section 921C of the Electronic Fund Transfer Act. Prohibition: no payment card network, including a subsidiary of a payment card network, may directly or through any agent, processor, or a licensed member of the network by contact, requirement, condition, penalty, or otherwise prohibit or inhibit the ability of any person who is in compliance with the law, including Section 8 of this Act, to obtain access to services or products of the payment card network because of political or reputational risk considerations. Civil penalty: any payment card network that violates subsection B shall be assessed with a civil penalty by the controller of the currency if of not more than 10% the value of the services or products described in that subsection, not to exceed $10,000 per violation. Credit unions. I assume that's going to be something. I think we get the gist here. Do we need much more of this? What's the rest of this? Finding banks, covered banks, presumption, credit union. Term fair access to financial services means persons engaged in activities lawful under the federal law are able to obtain financial services at banks without impediments caused by a prejudice against or dislike for a person or the business of the customer, products or services sold by the person, favoritism for market alternatives to the business of the person. Okay. This applies to commercial, merchant banking, lending, financing, leasing, cash asset and investment management, advisory services, credit card services, payment processing, security and foreign exchange trading and brokerage services, and insurance products. Okay. Wow. Doesn't sound too bad. That sounds okay. That sounds okay. I don't see any immediate issues with that. Should I try sending this to my friend Pisco? My good friend Pisco. Put in his Discord. Ask him to tell me why I should hate Republicans for this. Damn. Wow, we read most of that. Epic though. Sounds like an okay law. I'm tentatively on board.